Now to my conversation with former Vice President Mike Pence in Des Moines this weekend. Pence attended the Iowa State Fair, speaking with potential voters, and the former VP did put a bit of distance between his campaign and that of his old boss. Is his message resonating with voters? Does he think that Trump will be on the debate stage next week? And what about all the indictments the former president is facing? There's, as you know, another potential indictment looming with regard to that now infamous call 2021 that he made to Secretary of State of Georgia, Brad Raffensperger, where he said that he needed to find the 11,780 votes. Trump has said that that was a perfect call. Do you think that was a perfect call?
I wasn't there for the call. I only learned after the fact that he'd spoken to some state officials that day. And so, look, if another indictment comes, I want to make sure that the president has the same presumption of innocence that every American's entitled to. He's entitled to make his defense in court. But for my part, I know I did my duty on a fateful day in January of 2021.
There are people who say that these indictments are politically motivated. I'm curious if you think that this is all about politics or if there's some legitimacy to these indictments. And part of that potential looming indictment would be that Trump used public office to enrich himself. Curious if you think that either are true.
Well, look, I lived through 2.5 years of the Russia hoax and the Mueller investigation, and now it's been confirmed that FBI agents falsified documents in an effort to upend our election in 2016. We lived through an ongoing assault. Look, the American people have every right to be concerned about unequal treatment under the law. The indictment that took place in Manhattan was appalling. I was one of the first to denounce.
Talking more specifically.
I was one of the first to denounce, Lindsay, a search warrant executed against the home of a former president of the United States. But look, I understand those concerns.
On Friday, there was a special counsel appointed to deal with matters related to Hunter Biden. Is it your belief that you would make this part of the campaign, the president's son, his private dealings?
Well, I think the appointment of the special counsel is welcome, and frankly, it's overdue. I mean, where the Attorney General has a conflict of interest, the law requires that a special counsel be appointed. And I don't understand why it's taken this long, with so many questions swirling around Hunter Biden and the president's family during the time that he was vice president of the United States, that now, and only now, we have a special counsel appointed. I hope that they'll do their job without fear or favor, but the appointment of a prosecutor who was already involved in these investigations has undermined confidence. That's why I'm also grateful that House Republicans will continue to examine the facts, examine the record, and bring it forward to the American people. I must tell you the suggestion that while he was vice president of the United States, that the now president of the United States was in some way connected or involved in conversations while his son was dealing with foreign nationals is deeply troubling to me as a former vice president. It should be deeply troubling to every American. The American people have a right to know. They have a right to know what the facts are. And I trust between the Congress and the special counsel that the American people will have those facts.
What do you think is the biggest difference between you and Donald Trump?
Well, it certainly is a strong difference between us from that fateful day. I had no right to overturn the election. And the American people deserve to know that President Trump asked me to put him over my oath to the Constitution, but I chose the Constitution. And I believe that no one who puts himself over the Constitution should ever be President of the United States, and no one who asks someone else to put them over the Constitution should ever be President of the United States again. It's part of the reason why I'm running, but it's not the only reason. And the truth is, back in 2016, Donald Trump promised to govern as a conservative, even though he'd had a diverse political past and had taken different positions on issues important to conservatives. Many people thought that when he selected me as a lifelong conservative as his running mate was evidence that he would. And I must tell you, I'm incredibly proud of the record of the Trump-Pence administration. President Trump and I did govern as conservatives, created a conservative record that I'm very proud of. But the truth is, while he made that promise in 2016, he makes no such promise today.
I am curious to follow up on that because you said, and you've said it before, that no one who puts themselves over the Constitution should be president. But that being said, in order to appear on the debate stage, you have to sign this pledge that says you're going to support the nominee. If Trump is to be the nominee, how do you square that with then voting for him?
Look, I just have a lot of confidence in Republican voters. Caucus goers here in Iowa, primary voters starting in New Hampshire and all the states across the country. Look, everywhere I go, people stop us on the street and say, thank you for running. I mean, I know all the attention with you all in the national media, and much of the public debate is around events swirling around the President of the United States and also the failed record of the Biden administration. But I think as time goes on, you're going to see Republican caucus goers and primary voters do what they've always done before, and that is they're going to shape the standard bearer for a party fitted to the times. I believe that different times call for different leadership, and that Republicans want to see us get back to that agenda that used to carry us to majorities in national elections and will again. More important than that, though, it's an agenda that's always benefited all of the American people with greater prosperity and greater security. And so I have great confidence I'm going to be able to support the Republican nominee, especially if it's me.
I am curious, on election night, when Trump was saying, declaring victory, saying later that you all won by a landslide, and on that night you said, I really do believe, as you do, that we are on the road to victory. I'm curious if you wish that earlier on you had actually distanced yourself from Trump's lies about the election.
Well, on election night, I was hoping that we were on the road to victory. I mean, frankly, if you remember, in the middle of the night, returns slowed, and in many of the large disputed states literally stopped. But the enthusiasm that I saw across the country, I knew was greater than it had been in 2016 when we won. And I was believing that night at that early hour that at the end of the day, when all the votes were counted, that we would prevail. Sadly, it was not to be. But as I said, there were voting irregularities. It's one of the reasons why I so strongly supported the 60 different lawsuits that were brought. But not voting irregularities that would have changed the outcome. Well, we didn't know that at the time, Linsey. I mean, let's be fair. I mean, that's the reason why the lawsuits were brought, because what we would learn is that election laws were changed in ways that could have benefited Democrat candidates in many of those states. Now, at the end of the day, there was no evidence of widespread voter fraud that would change the outcome of the election. Since the most recent indictment, Trump has really come out on Truth Social blasting you, most recently saying that you've gone over to the dark side. How do you respond to that? Well, I don't, really. Look, I know the former president pretty well. I think more and more Americans every day are getting to know us. They're getting to know our lifetime of commitment to the conservative agenda. And I'm very heartened by the fact, and you saw it at the Iowa State Fair this week, how many people come up to us on a regular basis and thank us for the stand that we took on that fateful day. So I'll be taking my record to the American people, and the president can continue to do what he does. He can continue to hold forth and level his broadsides. But for me, I'm not going to engage in negative personal attacks. I'm going to draw the contrast, lay out the choice, and focus on how we make this country more prosperous and more secure after the disastrous policies of President Joe Biden in the White House. Just a yes or no. As you just said, you know the former president very well. Do you think he'll be on that debate stage August 23rd? I hope so. I really do. Look, I think anybody that wants the privilege of being the standard bearer of the Republican Party ought to be on that debate stage, and I hope he's there. Since we're here in Iowa, there was a recent poll, the Des Moines Register, that said 70% of the women here believe that abortion should be legal in all or most cases. Nationwide, I believe that number is just shy of that for men and women. If that's
the case, why push for something that Americans are saying they don't want?
Well, there are things more important than politics. And I believe that restoring the sanctity of life to the center of American law is the calling of our times. Now, it may take us as long to restore the sanctity of life in American law as it took us to overturn Roe versus Wade, but whatever the future holds for me and my family, I'll be a champion for that. But I also want to tell you, Linsey, I reject the notion that standing for the right to life is a political loser. I mean, you can look at races around the country, governors in Ohio and Georgia and other states that signed heartbeat bills that banned abortion after 6 weeks. Those governors were strongly reelected in those states. Here in Iowa, Governor Kim Reynolds supported a similar bill before her reelection, and she was reelected in a landslide. I think the way forward for Republicans to stand on principle and with compassion.
In the vice president residence, you had a plaque that was inscribed with Jeremiah 29:11, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, to give you a future and a hope." Do you think that it's God's plan for you to become president?
Well, I leave that to the good Lord and to the American people. But Karen and I felt called to enter this race because I think this country's in a lot of trouble. I think Joe Biden has weakened America at home and abroad. And with all the privileges we've had to serve, 4 years as vice president, 4 years as a governor, 12 years as a leading House conservative, we just couldn't sit this one out. I think this is a time for those of us that have the ability and the experience to turn this country around, to recognize that we have a responsibility to try. And so I'll leave the future to the one who holds the future, and I'll leave it to the American people, and we'll trust the outcome. But we're going to work our hearts out every single day to earn the opportunity, not just to lead our party, but to lead this country back to everything that's made us strong and prosperous and free.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vice President. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Linsey.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.